2024 election. And of course, there you can see the electoral body there announcing the final results. We know that this election, the race has been tight, a very pivotal race indeed. Some have even dubbed this particular election a watershed. For the first time, the ANC, which has been the ruling party for 30 years, nearly 30 years, if not more, was in a tight-fisted race with other opposition parties. Well, the announcement is still ongoing, and of course, right now, I guess it's just a breather. But just to bring you up to speed to some of the things that have happened, the chairman of the electoral body actually did give a speech. He highlighted the efforts made and, of course, dubbed the election free and fair. He described it as free and fair, even though, yes, he admitted there were challenges at some point, but in general, he, of course, termed the entire process as free and fair. And just a while ago, we also saw President Cyril Ramaphosa give a speech. And in that particular speech, exhaustively, he appreciated the efforts of the Independent Electoral Commission and also the efforts of South Africans, particularly the country as a whole in sustaining democracy this far. He also, of course, in between made a couple of jokes, just to lighten up the mood. But in all, the president actually highlighted the essence of the election, which, of course, according to him, is all about responsibility, of leaders towards the people, and not just, all about winning. There still, of course, you can see on your screen there, the announcement still ongoing. But to shed further light on this, I'm joined right now by our guest from South Africa, talking about Sipho Sepe. Sipho, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Now, what do you make of what we've seen so far?
Well, we have run a very good election in this country in the sense that the parties campaigned forcefully and they were very clear in terms of the messages. And what was also very clear is the posture that was taken by the ruling party in terms of making sure that democracy prevails. And I think that's the first thing that we may need to do, is to acknowledge the role played by the government in making sure that we have a free campaigning by companies, by organizations, that also that the parties can feel free, that the citizens can also feel free to be able to cast their vote without any intimidation. So from that perspective of the exercise and process, we could say that the South Africans acquitted themselves well. And we could also say, given the number of polling stations, over 23,000, and of course, in your country, there'll be more, but in our country, that's quite massive. And having over 200,000 IC officials and all having to deliver this, we could say, despite the little hitches that we've gone through, the elections were run largely free and fairly. So that is one thing that is positive. And also the president was quick to indicate that, in a sense, we have a duty as a people to make sure that the people express their will through a vote. And that has been something that is positive.
Okay, I mean, the election or the Electoral Commission chairman actually described in his speech the process as free and fair. Do you agree with him?
Yeah, I think the process was relatively free and fair. Where there were hitches is, as you would expect, when you have people, and especially over 200,000 people who are engaged, there'll be errors of omission and commission here and there. But by and large, that will not change the percentage or the expression of the will of the people. The fact that one ballot box may have disappeared will not be on its own to say they need to be nullified. And I do think that parties who are unhappy in this country can always approach the courts and they can always even approach the IEC, but the IEC does not think that at the moment some of the concerns warrant the postponing the announcement.
Now, former President Jacob Zuma, in line with, of course, the question I just asked you, the former President Jacob Zuma actually said on behalf of his party that the election was rigged and even warned that the commission shouldn't announce the results. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, I think the challenge would be for the former president and the people who hold that view to approach the courts and be able to find a way in which justice can be served. Because it can be proved that the numbers that were ultimately given do not tally with the expressions that were coming from the polling station, nothing prevents this country from revisiting that and correcting it. But I don't think on the whole it will change largely the picture that has actually emerged.
Let's also look at the idea of a coalition. I just want to know what you think on that, because there were deep conversations around that.
Well, there are obviously, as you expect, that when you don't have an outright winner, parties will try to find a way of forming government. And there are a number of considerations that will come in. First, there'll be non-negotiables by parties that are being approached to say, if you really want us, you'll get us on the base of the following, that if you meet these demands, and then we'll be comfortable. And there's also the issue of ideological orientation in terms of ideological affinity. That is, who are you representing? And whether entering into a partnership would be undermining those that you represent. So in this country, what has happened is that the ANC has a number of options as a party that gained more votes. It can work with the main opposition party, which is the Democratic Alliance, which represents largely white interests. And it could also work with black parties. But many people feel that you have a president who himself has been bought by main white business. So there's a view that says he might be more inclined to want to work with the Democratic Alliance. And that is one approach. And those who hold that view are also being warned that should that happen, then the president will have crossed the line. It will be very clear that the money that was paid to support his presidential ambitions is now bearing fruit to secure that the white interest and white monopoly interest are being taken care of. So that is one view. Then there is also a view that says maybe he needs to consider working with black parties, because after all, South Africa still experiences the inequalities that are spawned by centuries of colonialism and apartheid. And to that extent, as a liberation movement, there's still more to be done. And that can only be done on the basis of black unity. And they've argued that maybe he should consider parties like EFF and even MK, because these are anyway parties that are offshoots of the main party, the liberation movement, the African National Congress. So they're saying, with this, we don't have to preach. All we have to do is to deal with issues that have to do more with personalities rather than the ideological considerations. And then there's also a third option that people are putting, that the ANC itself seems to be more comfortable with, is to have what you call a government of national unity. Their argument is that once you have that government of national unity, you have a better chance of creating consensus around governance. But it also can create a possibility where all the things that stand in the way of real transformation in this country can be addressed consensually without the confrontation that you see when you have the opposition versus government. So that is the one third option that is being put on the table.
Now, one mantra or one word that seemed to resonate, particularly during election day, because we also had, our reporter in South Africa on ground, was the mantra of change. And we are beginning to see that in a way reflect through these elections. But my question to you is this. Do you think that South Africa is beginning to transit into a new democratic dawn where the dominance of the current party, talking about the ANC, seems to be dwindling?
Well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, the main buzzword has always changed, especially coming from young people. And they are saying, despite the 30 years of freedom and democracy, the democratic dividends have not trickled down. And that is more of a major concern for them. And they've argued that the ANC does not deserve to be given another chance. And this is why when you look at the outcomes are indicative, because for the first time, the ANC has gotten less than 50%, whereas in the past, it was a case of the ANC always being assured that should the election take place, it will definitely be able to get more than 50% it to be the next government. But things have changed, and the young people are saying, maybe we need to try something else, because this democracy is not supposed to work for those who are governors. It must also work for the people who are voting. It's a question of your constituency must buy into the democratic process and experiment. And when you have these inequalities that they've seen, change must happen. Hence the pathway of change throughout these elections.
Now, for South Africans, how do you think eventually when all of this is over, how do you think majority of South Africans will eventually take the results or the eventual outcome? And do you also suspect? Just to land, do you also suspect any form of security threat, in whatever capacity after this phase?
No, I don't think one expects a challenge with that in that regard. I do think that after people have expressed their unhappiness, they will probably move towards a form of settlement, because all these people are people who have worked with each other, and among the different groupings, they are friends. So I think they would exploit those friendships and that comradeship that they used to have, to say, let's have a discussion that is mature and take our country forward and focus on our people. So I don't see any security threat.
All right. Thank you so much for your contribution and your time on the news. Thank you once again for the update.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's go on a quick break. We will be back shortly. Okay. Yeah. Away from the update in South Africa, let's also tell you that some affiliated agencies of organized labor have announced their intention to embark on a planned strike over the new minimum wage demand in Nigeria, despite the appeal by the federal government. The leadership of the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress has maintained their decision to proceed with industrial action. Now, some of the affiliated agencies with the organized labor include the Nigeria Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, the National Union of Electricity Employees, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, Judicial Staff Union of Nigeria, Medical and Health Workers Union of Nigeria, Nigeria Civil Service Unions, amongst others. They directed their members to comply with the directive of the two labor centers to begin an indefinite strike nationwide on Monday. In the meantime, organized labor has urged President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to personally intervene in the ongoing negotiations over minimum wage to avert the indefinite strike action scheduled to start on Monday. This is as the federal government warned that the national minimum wage being demanded by labor could destabilize the economy. Organized labor had given a May 31st, 2024 ultimatum on the new minimum wage. On Tuesday, May 28th, talks between the federal government and organized labor broke down after the government and the organized private sector raised their offers to 60,000 naira. Now, the Minister of State for Labor, however, said the strike was unnecessary, urging the organized labor to return to the negotiation table for more discuss. In the meantime, labor unions across the country are gearing up for Monday's strike. Let's move to security matters now. All the kidnapped students of the Confluence University of Science and Technology, Osara, Kogi State, have been rescued. This is according to the state's Commissioner for Information and Communications, Kingsley Fawo. According to a statement issued on Sunday, Fawo said the state governor, Usman Ododo, directed full support towards the recovery of the students and their parents, while modalities are being put in place to make Kogi State safer. He called on members of the public to cooperate with security agencies and volunteer intelligence to help prevent crime and ensure a safer environment for everyone. The kidnappers had on Thursday, May 9th, 2024, invaded the university at around 9 p.m. and abducted some students of the institution who were in the classroom preparing for their forthcoming exams. Now, while two students were earlier killed by the gunmen, 3 days after the kidnap, the Kogi State Police Command said security operatives rescued 14 students of the university. Staying with security, the President of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has ordered security agents to go after the killers of 5 soldiers in Aba, Abia State, and those behind the call for the sit-at-home in the southeast. Tinubu said, on no account should anyone under any guise have the audacity to kill agents of the state. This was contained in a statement on Saturday night. The president, who was reacting to the murder of 5 soldiers in Aba on Thursday, May 30th, by elements suspected to be members of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, warned that the federal government will come down heavily against those who have made it a habit to needlessly attack officers and men of the armed forces. A yet-to-be-specified number of persons have lost their lives after a trailer lost control and crashed 2 tricycles in Anambra State, southeast Nigeria. On Sunday, the accident occurred at Oba along the Onitsha-Owerri Expressway, Idemili South local government area of the state. It was gathered that the victims were said to be on their way to attend a church service when the accident occurred. Sources at the scene said the driver of the heavy-duty truck failed brakes, lost control, and was trying to control the vehicle, eventually ramming it into 2 fully loaded tricycles, pushing it and some of the occupants into a ditch. 5 persons have been killed, with 3 seriously injured following a windstorm that occurred on Saturday night in Bauchi State. The public relations officer of the state, that's Abubakar, of the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Teaching Hospital, Bauchi, Abdullahi Kobi, confirmed the casualty figures on Sunday. The injured victims are receiving treatment at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Teaching Hospital, Bauchi. Most of the victims were brought in from the venue of the recently concluded joint Northeast Trade Fair at the Ibrahim Babangida Square in Bauchi metropolis. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has seized codeine-based syrup and loud, a synthetic cannabis strain worth over 2.1 billion naira at the Port Harcourt Seaport and Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. This was made known in a statement signed by the agency's Director of Media and Advocacy, Femi Babafemi, and shared on the agency's website on Sunday. Additionally, the NDLEA operatives arrested a 70-year-old grandfather with 57.2 kilograms of cannabis in Nasarawa State and two suspects with 426 kilograms of cannabis in Ekiti State. Other arrests were made in the FCT, Katsina, and Nasarawa. According to the statement, the suspect arrested at the Lagos airport claimed he was recruited to transport drugs from Canada to Nigeria for a fee of 6 million naira. He said he was a resident of Germany but traveled to Toronto to collect the drugs. He was caught with a large consignment of loud, a synthetic cannabis strain worth 960 million naira. Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima and Lagos State former Governor Babatunde Raji Fashola have said the call for a parliamentary system of government being championed in some quarters may not necessarily be the way out of the perceived unjust distribution of commonwealth and infrastructure in the country. Speaking as a principal guest and guest speaker at the 30th anniversary of Yusuf Olaolu Chambers in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, they both said that only quality governance would shape the society and indeed the system of government. They advised those calling for the return of the country to a parliamentary system of government to deeply reflect on whether the reasons that caused its collapse before the First Republic have been taken care of. Earlier, we were joined on the news by the National Coordinator Middle Belt Patriots, Zavriye Yusuf, to discuss this.
From the onset, where we had, the regions, and it got to a point where a lot of things were not properly addressed, and I think where the military came in, where states were created, and all of that. Now, the constitution that basically has given birth, what we have now, the Northeast, not Central, Northwest, South, Southwest, Southeast, and all of that was basically handed down. I've looked through it, and I will still do a very thorough, study of it. But the fact that it was something that was handed down by the military, it was something that was not representative of the peoples, of the ethnicities that make up the Nigerian state, the peoples that make up the Nigerian state. And it was something that equally incorporated or integrated into it the dominance of a particular region politically over the rest. The implication of it is that there would be more, it's something I welcome to begin with, there would be, it's going to represent more of the yearnings of people, or of the peoples, talking about their ethnicities, their localities where they are.
Let's move to political matters now, where the crisis rocking the Edo State chapter of the Labour Party has taken a new dimension with the suspension of the caretaker committee chairman, Elizabeth Ativier, over alleged gross misconduct and insubordination. The decision was taken at an enlarged meeting of the State Working Committee, which was attended by local government chairmen and secretaries of the party. The development is coming less than 1 week after she was sworn in as a caretaker chairman of the Labour Party in the state by the national leadership of the party after the dissolution of the state exco led by Kelly Ogbaloyi. Worldwide, women and girls with disabilities face double discrimination based on their gender and disability when it comes to assessing education, employment, and health, and taking part in decision-making. they face additional barriers compared to women without disabilities. They also face an increased risk of violence, exploitation, and abuse, including forced contraception, sterilization, and abortion.
Focus on ensuring women and girls benefit equally from programs. As part of these efforts, extra steps are being taken by women networks to ensure that women and girls with disabilities are not left behind. Women are among those with the least access to education, employment opportunities, financial inclusion, and medical support. Women empowerment is a key component of Nigeria's socio-economic growth. The government and many other agencies are undertaking measures to improve the situation through various activities focused on the well-being of the female gender.
This is the month of disability actually, and we thought that the best time to reach out to them is this month. Bring them in, provide them the basic health screening and medications and access to glasses if necessary, and generally make them feel inclusive and provide access to medical facilities which they don't normally have.
Unless women and girls with disabilities are included, the targets to achieve universal health coverage and sustainability development goals in Nigeria will not be met.
We are here today with our doctors, with our psychologists, with our physiotherapists for basic health screenings, looking at their physical health. We're looking at their mental health as well. We're looking at mobility issues that may affect them. We're looking at their psychological aspect of their wellness as well. And it's been a wonderful experience for us.
Women networks have increased their efforts to ensure that women across the country are actively engaged in community-focused programs, lending their skills and resources to support the less privileged.
For giving us the opportunity to know the status of our health, because they really check us thoroughly, and we all know the status of our health. And if there is any other thing, I think we know how to go about it. And we are given the opportunity to know how to spend our money wisely and how to grow on our money and how to plan for our future. They've taught us that this morning. I think it's a privilege for us.
Women's networks have a key role to play as far as women's empowerment is concerned. Be it the schemes about educational financing at the early age or financial assistance for setting up a source of livelihood, they are important in enhancing the financial inclusion of women in the Nigerian economy.
Coming up on the news, Niger officials, soldier killed in ambush near Nigeria. We have details of this and more after now. Nigerian authorities on Sunday disclosed that 3 persons, officials and a soldier were killed in an ambush in southwest of the country by gunmen who crossed the border from Nigeria. The victims were visiting Difa, a region that has suffered numerous deadly attacks since 2015, attributed to fighters from Boko Haram and the Islamic State in West Africa, ISWAP. This volatile area lies along the shores of Lake Chad, bordered by Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and Nigeria. The region's swampy islands have become notorious hideouts for armed jihadist groups. The Komadugu-Yobe River, which traditionally serves as a natural barrier between Niger and Nigeria, has seen its water levels drop, creating multiple crossing points from Nigeria. This has allowed ISWAP fighters to infiltrate and attack travelers on the main road, where the ambush occurred this week, according to the Nigerian army. The news continues in West Africa, where the, Ivory Coast former President Henry Konan Bedei was laid to rest Saturday in his native village 10 months after his death. Delegations representing ethnic groups from all over the country traveled to the eastern village of Pepresio to pay last respect to Bedei, who was commonly known by his initials HKB. Since Monday, thousands of mourners have flocked to the area, which usually has a population of several hundred. Bedei succeeded Ivorian President, a post-colonial founding father, Felix Hubert Boigny, as president from 1993 to 1999, when he was overthrown by the military in the country's first ever coup.
Le président Henri Konan Bendier, il a été notre papa, pépé, papa de tout le monde. En tout cas, il a fait beaucoup pour nous. Il a construit une maison pour nous, il a aidé les jeunes, il y a des jeunes qui travaillent. Moi-même, il m'a aidé dans mon salon de coiffure, tout ça là.
Bon, le président Bendier, il a été un homme de paix. Il a été de générosité, en créant pour nous, la population de peu pression, des champs, des plantations de VA. Il a construit des maisons pour sa population. Et il est venu au soutien de la population lorsque besoin fallait.
Nous la tiboua. Parce que donc a oui so kay oui e o manga boy o ko awura boy oui so.
Donald Trump has warned that it could prove to be a breaking point for his supporters if he is sentenced to prison or house arrest following his historical criminal conviction. Now, in an interview on Sunday, the former president and the current Republican White House hopeful acknowledged the possibility that he could be handed jail time or a period of home detention at his sentencing on July 11th. The warning will resonate in a country already concerned about the prospect of political violence in the increasingly heated run-up to the November 5th presidential election. Trump will now be running as a convicted felon, and he has repeatedly made it clear he will not accept the result should he lose to President Joe Biden. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused China of working hard to stop countries from going to a peace summit, which Beijing has publicly criticized because Russia is not invited. Zelensky made the remarks at a security forum in Singapore as he sought to rally support for the conference and appealed for more military aid for Ukraine, which has been ceding ground to Russian troops, as Beijing believes the conference should have the recognition of Russia and Ukraine, equal participation of all parties, and fair discussion of all peace plans. Zelensky also expressed disappointment that some world leaders had not signed up to the conference, with China signaling Xi Jinping will not attend, while US President Joe Biden is yet to commit.
А вже ж ми без позитиву сприймаємо сигнал Китаю щодо того, що вони не будуть підтримувати, не будуть братимуть участь в саміті миру. Китаєм Росії війна буде довшою. Це погано для всього світу. І для політики Китаю, який говорить про те, що поважає територіальну цілісність і суверенітет, що це головні принципи. І декларується офіційно. Для них це також, я вважаю, не дуже добре. Ніколи не можна підтримувати країну, яка є агресором. Хтось може не бути проти політики цієї держави. На жаль, хтось може бути не проти. Але найстрашніше, коли ти підтримуєш цю політику. Це говорить про те, що ти дотримаєшся таких самих правил в житті. Це говорить про те, що і політика твоєї держави, в принципі, саме така. Підтримувати.
In business, OPEC Plus agreed on Sunday to extend most of its deep oil output cuts well into 2025, exceeding market expectations, as the group seeks to shore up the market amidst tepid demand growth, now high interest rates, and also rising rival in U.S. production. Oil prices trade near $80 per barrel, below what many OPEC Plus members need to balance their budget. Worries over slow demand growth in top oil importer China have weighed on prices alongside rising oil stock in developed economies. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and Allies, led by Russia, together known as OPEC Plus, have made a series of deep output cuts since late 2022. Up next is more business news.
Welcome to Business News. Public outcry and stakeholder pressure have forced the National Assembly to suspend proposed amendments to the Central Bank of Nigeria CBN Act 2007. The amendments aimed to alter the CBN's governance structure and operational autonomy. Proponents argued for enhanced oversight and accountability, aligning the CBN with national economic goals. However, the amendments faced immediate backlash from a broad spectrum of stakeholders, including economists, business leaders, civil society organizations, and multilateral lenders. They warned that the changes would undermine the CBN's independence, crucial for maintaining monetary policy stability and investor confidence in Nigeria. In response to the controversy, the National Assembly has acknowledged the concerns and put the amendments on hold for further consultations. And still in Africa, Nigerian stocks ended May positively in a surprise turn of events as the NGX All-Share Index rallied throughout this week, closing at 99,300.38 points. The NGX All-Share Index and market capitalization appreciated by 1.73% to close the weekend in May 31 at 99,300.38 and 56.172 trillion naira respectively. Most sectors joined the upward trend, with the NGX Banking Index leading the charge with a 2.97% increase. Only the NGX Industrial Goods and NGX Growth indices bucked the trend, experiencing slight declines. This positive performance erased the losses incurred in April, resulting in a 1% monthly gain for the All-Share Index. Despite a 5.03% dip this quarter, the index remains impressively strong, boosting a 32.8% year-to-date gain. And finally, in East Africa, Uganda's Capital Markets Authority, CMA, and the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development are working to review the regulatory framework to boost the uptake of private equity PE financing as an alternative source of capital for the private sector. The regulator says in its latest annual report that mobilizing alternative sources of funds to finance the private sector is one of its key priorities in enhancing the growth of the economy. This initiative aims to boost economic development by providing businesses and infrastructure projects with alternative financing options beyond traditional bank loans and public offerings. Recent data shows a growing trend of companies in East Africa turning to PE for funding, highlighting the need for a more supportive regulatory environment in Uganda. And that's a package on business news at this time. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasamifita. The news continues shortly. Bye for now.
Let's tell you in the world of sports that Nigeria's Minister of Sport, John Enna, and the Rivers State Commissioner, Christopher Green, have commended Rivers Hoppers basketball team for a job well done at the just concluded Africa Basketball League in Kigali, Rwanda. Now, the sports administrators were on ground to receive the team when they landed at the Muritala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos on Sunday afternoon. Green attributed the success to hard work and support of the Rivers State Governor, Sim Fubara, and tagged the huge feat recorded as historic for the country. The Kingsmen defeated Cape Town Tigers 80-57 to finish third, making it the first time a Nigerian club will get a podium finish.
First, I want to say to God be the glory. To Him alone be the glory. I'm very happy. I'm very excited because it's hard work. It's all about hard work. And at this point, I also need to thank the Governor of Rivers State, His Excellency Sir Simnalai Joseph Fubara, Grand Service Star of Rivers State, the Executive Governor of Rivers State, for all the support, all the promptings, everything, motivations and everything. Even the money that he spent to preparing this team to achieving this, not only.
That's a wrap on the news at this time. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live across these platforms: DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Apple TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Dapo Adigwe. Bye for now.